To get the most out of your 3D printer, you need to be able to design your own custom parts. But if you're a complete beginner, that can seem quite daunting, which is why in this video, in less than 20 minutes, I'll teach you everything you need to know to design your first part in Tinkercad, making use of a great new feature. The clock is running, so as the intro said, designing your own parts and printing them is the best way to use your 3D printer. And I've already got an extensive playlist teaching 3D modeling for the free program Onshape. But I know for some people, the learning curve is still a little bit too steep, no matter how much I break it down. So we're going to use Tinkercad instead. And maybe you've used it in the past, but you don't know about its great new feature. We'll start with what is Tinkercad, and it's a 3D design program that runs straight out of your browser. Nothing needs installation, and generally that makes it quick to get going and very friendly for classrooms. If you don't have an account, you would come up to sign up. If you're a hobbyist at home, you would create a personal account. Otherwise, if you're in a school, you would create a teacher account, and then once you get your students on board, they would click this link to join a class. And for students, even if they came to log in, you can provide them with a class code that you could put up on a whiteboard or projector to make it very easy for your students to get online. Once you log in, you'll come to a dashboard that'll have all of your designs, circuits, and code blocks. Of course, if you're starting out, most of this will be empty. So let's instead come over to the right-hand side and click Create, followed by 3D Design. After a few seconds, our main 3D design interface has loaded, and every file will be given a random name, and often these are humorous, but if you are running this in a classroom, the first thing you want your students to do is at a minimum to append their name to the end of the file so you can tell who owns what. Okay, let's start with the basics, and that means controlling the camera. If you hold down the right mouse button and then drag the mouse, this will orbit the view. Holding down the middle mouse wheel and then moving the mouse will pan the view, and scrolling the mouse wheel back and forth will zoom in and out. As a backup, you can click and drag on this cube in the top left corner. You can zoom in and out with the plus and minus buttons. There's also a button to zoom so everything fits. And if you're completely lost, you can always click home to reset the camera. The beauty of Tinkercad is it's extremely quick to learn once you understand the base mechanic. And that's that we have all of these pre-built shapes over on the right hand side that we can drag into our work plane. We can either click once on the shape and then a second time on the work plane, or we can simply click and drag a shape out to exactly where we want it. Once they're on the work plane, we can click and drag our shapes around, overlapping them if we want, and then using the black and white controls to lift things up and down, to resize, or with the shape selected, clicking and dragging one of the three arrows to rotate. And just with this limited knowledge, it's very quick for someone to come, click and drag shapes together, and quickly build up some sort of geometry. Another aspect that makes Tinkercad easy to pick up is the controls are quite intuitive. For instance, if we want to delete a shape, we can click on it, press delete on the keyboard, or alternatively click on it and then press the delete icon in the upper left. Copy and paste works just like other programs using keyboard shortcuts. And again, for those that don't know shortcuts, we have buttons for these actions in the upper left. And of course, we have the safety net of undo and redo buttons to go back in time if we make an error. One other shortcut that's worth learning, because there is no button for it, is D for drop. We can see that this shape is hovering above the work plane, but as soon as we press D, it drops down into position. One of the key concepts to understand with Tinkercad is how we combine shapes together. In its simplest form, we can simply drag two shapes so they overlap, drag a box around both of them to select them at the same time, and then come up to this button on the upper right, which is called Group. As soon as we click this, the two shapes will be combined into one. Now let's say we want to edit the position of how these two are molded together. We can click and select the shape and then come up and select Ungroup to split them back into their original shapes. Already this is powerful, but we also have these basic shapes that have a white and grey stripy pattern. And when you drag them out, you'll see they're translucent. The idea with these is, once we group them with another shape, instead of adding, they will cut out of that original shape. So let's drag a box around all of these, group once more, and we can see that the cylinder has taken a bite out of our shape. Fortunately, we're not just limited to a box or cylinder for this. We can drag out any shape we want, and while it's selected, we can change it from a solid to a hole. If we move this shape into position, select everything and then click Group, its negative will be cut out from the rest of the solids. Of course, we can apply this in layers, and by that I mean combining multiple shapes, for instance a cylinder and a sphere, arranged so the sphere is on the end of the cylinder. I group them into one, select this shape and then make it a hole, spin it upside down, move it into position on the other model, getting it exactly where I want it, before selecting everything and grouping a final time. As you can see, we now have a smooth well with a rounded bottom cut out of our shape. Now it's worth noting that you can scroll and get more and more shapes by clicking the more shapes, and there's also different categories that you can select from the drop down menu at the top. Not all of these are suitable for 3D printing, but they're worth exploring as they offer a fun and quick way to build up various shapes. Back in the basic shapes category, perhaps you've got a child or a student with very basic skills, then perhaps the Scribble tool is your friend. We drag it out onto the work plane, the camera will change to a top-down orthographic view with a 3D preview in the top corner, and now all we basically need to do is drag the mouse to paint a shape. And we can see in our 3D preview that that shape will become three-dimensional. If required, we have an eraser where we can delete sections of the work. We have a draw shape tool that will fill in the center of whatever shape you trace, and then an erase with shape tool that will delete anything contained within the shape that you trace. We have specific tools for undo and redo, and when we're happy, we can simply click done in the lower right. Back in our main interface, we can still manipulate this just like we would any other, changing the dimensions by making it taller, squishing it, rotating it, scaling it as we see fit. Scribbles can also become negative shapes, and if we want, we can edit our scribble to get back to this interface and make any changes that we need. To design functional parts, we need to be able to model with accuracy. Now we already know that we can click and drag to change the size of things, but we can also click on their dimension and explicitly enter a value that we're targeting. The same goes for the single white square in the middle, which dictates the height. The same goes for angles. We can start the drag, come down, and then enter an exact value. And like you might expect, if you're dragging something up or down, we can also come over, click the dimension, and enter exactly what we're after. When we select a shape, we'll also have direct access to setting the length, width, height, and other parameters depending on the shape. Very handily, we can also add a radius automatically to all exterior edges. And if you were wondering what steps is, that's kind of like a resolution. At the moment, we can see that these curves are faceted, but if we turn up the steps, they'll become a lot smoother at the expense of processing time when we group and ungroup shapes. The next way that we'll achieve accuracy is by using the snapping on the work plane. And you can see as I move the shape around, it's snapping in 1mm increments. And if we come down to the very bottom right, we can actually change the resolution of the snap, including turning it off. So depending on what you're designing, you can increase or decrease the resolution of the snap to fit. Our next concept is that the work plane doesn't have to be down flat underneath our shape. We can come up to our toolbar and drag out a new work plane and snap it to any surface we like. We can see now that the work plane is vertical. And for instance, if I want to drag out a new shape, it's going to snap to that work plane, and spinning the camera to suit is going to make it a lot easier to vertically position any objects. At any time, if we want the original work plane back, we can come up to the work plane tool and drag it down onto our base that will remain with a blue outline. Another great tool for attaining accuracy is to drag out a ruler. This can go onto the work plane and will act as a datum or reference for any geometry we have selected. So for instance, if I now click this cube, not only will we get the depth, width, and height, but we also know it's 1mm to the right of our origin and 11mm higher. We can monitor this while we move shapes around, or click on them to type in and set an exact value. You might notice one more dimension labeled 0. This is for the vertical distance of the shape above the ruler. So if I input 20 and hit enter, we can now see that the base of this shape is sitting up 20mm from the origin of the ruler. Just near the origin, we'll have a toggle to use midpoint or endpoint for our coordinate system. So currently we're seeing that the edge is 15mm from the origin, but if we toggle that to midpoint, we now know that the middle of this shape is 20mm from the origin. And just above that, we have an X that we can click to delete that ruler. We can see that when we try and add a new ruler, it won't interact with any of the shapes and will only stick to the work plane. But if we first drag a plane and snap it to another surface, we can then add a ruler and place it wherever we need on this plane. One other great way to get things aligned accurately is to use the Align tool. If we select multiple shapes and then come up to Align, will let us click on a corner or a midpoint to snap those objects together, giving us the confidence that these edges are now perfectly aligned. Now we're going to talk about a new tool in Tinkercad that has made life a lot easier. Let's take for example this tray designed and modeled in Onshape. Driving this shape is a sketch. It has 3 straight lines and then 2 arcs meeting at a tangent, and we take this lower section, extrude it to make it 3D, and then use the shell tool to make it hollow. We'll notice in Tinkercad we have a tool labeled new, and that is the sketch tool. Like the other tools, we click and drag it onto the work plane. Like with the Scribble tool, we'll move to a 2D top-down view, and then we have 3 tools down the outside: create line, create Bezier curve, and clear. We're going to recreate that tray. Let's start with the line tool, drawing 3 of those sides that are going to make up the tray. We're going to close off the shape on top, and no, I'm not worrying about exact dimensions here. For now the shape is complete, but we need to add those curves. We're going to double click on the shape to enter edit mode, and then double click the line that we'd like to edit. This will bring us 2 orange control points so that we can click and drag to set the shape of the curve. We can then click on the left hand point and we'll get the same type of orange handle, which again we can adjust to get our desired shape. Now we don't have anywhere near as much control as we do in a parametric CAD program, but that's not to say this isn't a very welcome addition. We can click on any of these lines to see the dimension and then drag either end to alter this, although at this stage we can't double click on the dimension and enter exactly what we want. We can come back to the pen tool and create new shapes to have multiples within the same sketch. And this Bezier tool is quite handy. A single click will do a sharp corner, but if we click and drag the mouse, it'll then turn it into a curve, which is very handy for creating flowing shapes. Of course, you don't need to get it perfect the first time. You can come back and double click on a line to edit it as we saw earlier. We can also click on a shape and press delete to remove it. When we're done, we click Finish Sketch in the upper right, and just like the Scribble tool, our sketch will be extruded to give it thickness. From here, it acts like any other primitive shape. We can click and drag the white handles to resize it, both the height as well as the length and width. And with the shape selected, we can use the arrows to rotate. Here you'll see me spin it to face down towards the bed, and then I'll select it and press D for drop on the keyboard to lower it down. Now, like our other shapes, we can select this at any point later on, assuming nothing is merged with it, and come and edit the sketch. We can also toggle it between a solid and a hole. Just to finish the comparison, let's switch to the top view and drag out an empty box to hollow the middle. So if our starting shape is 25 by 40, let's make our cutout shape 23 by 38, which is 2 millimeters less for X and Y. Now I can select both, come up to a line, and click on the center point, and this should lock the two together. Finally, I can spin the camera and lift this up 1 millimeter, select both shapes and group them together, giving us a hollow tray with a wall thickness of 1 millimeter the whole way around. Using this combination of primitives, you could already put them together to create shapes just like this, but I think with the sketch tool, it's become a lot easier. At this stage, however, it's perhaps a little bit simplistic, and I think they could add some more options without ruining how simple and intuitive this software is to use. Since we are designing for 3D printing, it makes sense to include a ready for 3D printing checklist, and this should be especially handy for students and children. Number 1, our designs should be a single item. We don't want to risk importing just part of this shape, so go that extra step by selecting everything and making sure that we group them together. Number 2, we need to pay close attention to overhangs and floating regions because 3D prints are built from the bottom up. Just like if you were building a house out of brick, you stack them from the ground up. Therefore, we need to be careful about the type of shapes that we have. And this shape here has a steep overhang, an unsupported bridge in the middle, and then an unsupported cantilevered edge on the other side. Let's see how this object prints, and as we can see on the left, the steep sloping overhang has no problem at all. But what about the other two? Well, modern 3D printers are actually quite good at bridging, and that means printing in midair with nothing underneath. They typically slow down and turn on part cooling to try and set the molten plastic in midair. And while the job they do here is admirable, there's no doubt that the quality suffers quite a bit. And inspecting the print confirms this. We can see on the left that steep overhangs are fine as long as they slope. Bridges supported on either side are not too bad, but anytime we have geometry only supported on one side, it's going to droop badly. And this is why I said not all of the shapes available from the library will be 3D printable. For instance, this astrobot has an arm that would be completely hanging in midair, and that's not going to print very nicely at all. The same for these bottom sections of the torso, as well as underneath the rockets. Trying to print those is going to be a disaster. Sometimes we can get around these constraints simply by flipping the way the object faces on the bed. Putting this one upside down or even on its side alleviates the problem, but this isn't always an option, so be aware of overhangs when designing. Number 3 is creating shapes that have a nice big surface area that touches the bed. These two gem shapes are identical, only one is flipped upside down. We would expect the sloping overhangs to be alright in either case, but the one on the left has only a tiny contact patch that will be touching the bed. It shouldn't really be a surprise what happens when we print them. The gemstone on the right has a great grip on the bed and remains attached, but the one on the left, well, it's only a matter of time before it gets knocked loose. It's really important when 3D printing to maximize the surface area touching the bed for maximum printing reliability. Obviously there's more to consider, but when you're starting out in Tinkercad, these 3 are perhaps the most important. Finally, Tinkercad is great because it's easy to use, but it does have some limitations. Being cloud software that runs out of your browser means it's very accessible and it does have auto saving. But if you lose internet connection or just leave the page idle for too long, you're going to see this disconnect message, so that's a deal breaker for some. A big limitation is adding curves, also known as a fillet, or an angled edge, known as a bevel or chamfer, to an existing shape. We can see for this cube that we have a radius slider to add a fillet, but every side is done at the same time and has to be the same. And this cylinder has a bevel slider to allow us to add a chamfer. But if we want to add a fillet to this one or a bevel to that, we are out of luck. The new sketch tool does give us more options for creating a negative shape that we then use to cut the outside of an existing primitive, but since we can only snap to the grid instead of the shape, it's not a properly smooth junction. So if you do end up switching to a popular parametric CAD program like Onshape, you'll love the way you can simply click any edges you want to add a fillet to, and then drag a slider or enter an input value to do so. And adding bevels and chamfers works exactly the same way. It's near instant and you have full control over what you're adding. Our last and perhaps biggest limitation is when we want to edit a complicated shape we've been working on for some time. For instance, this was a stadium sail made for a diorama, and there's a lot of processes in here. Let's say I want to go back and change one of the original elements. Well, to do that, I need to keep on selecting and ungrouping, breaking down all of these elements back into their individual aspects. This feels like building a sandcastle and then smashing it down. It's quite disheartening. And the reason that it feels like that is that once you strip everything down to the original element and make your change, you then need to reapply all of those steps again, which means you're basically rebuilding it from scratch. Compare that to parametric CAD, where everything you've done is listed in order along a feature tree, and you can go back in time and edit any of these, perhaps once again changing the style of the curve, and more often than not, as soon as you save that feature, everything else will auto update and you'll end up at the same shape but with your modification. You can end up with some parts that have quite a long feature tree, but ultimately it's still easier to edit any one aspect of this feature tree than break everything apart, make a change and reapply all of the same work, which unfortunately is the only option with the approach that Tinkercad takes. I've taught Tinkercad to many students in the past and they all picked it up pretty quickly, so I'm confident you will too. It does have its limitations, however, so let me know in the comments what's the most complex and impressive object you've ever designed with Tinkercad. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, happy designing your own custom 3D printed parts. G'day, it's Michael again. If you liked the video, then please click like. If you want to see more content like this in future, click subscribe and make sure you click on the bell to receive every notification. If you really want to support the channel and see exclusive content, become a patron. Visit my Patreon page. See you next time.